What makes for a good campaign opener? What's your ideal session 1 for a new D&D campaign? In the case of Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden, there are 2 suggested starting quests, but personally I just wasn't feeling them. So where did I choose to start, and where should you? Let's talk. Hi everyone, my name is Nate, and you are watching WASD 20, a channel about tabletop RPGs and fantasy maps. In this video, I'll be talking about all 12 of the 10 towns quests in Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden. But even if you have no plans to run this campaign, I think it's worth thinking about what makes for a good session 1. And I also happen to think some of these quests are really good, and you can easily be inspired by them or slot them into your own campaign. And if you're already past session 1, you'll get a good feel for what each of the quests involves. Before we jump into my thoughts on what makes a good starting quest, let me remind you that I'm running this campaign twice a month on my new channel, WASD 20 Live. I'll put a link to the playlist that includes our first 2 sessions right up there, and session 3 is coming Monday, November 2 at 8 p.m. EST, so I hope you can check it out. So what makes a good starting quest? This is obviously going to vary based on the DM's and the group's personal tastes. For me, I was looking for a quest that had some action, a bit of peril, but also had a bit of room for some exploration and social encounters. Lastly, I wanted a quest that set the tone for the harsh environment my players can expect in Icewind Dale. So a quest with no real action or peril was out, but a quest that launched the players right into a dungeon was also out. I wanted to give them some chances to explore outdoors a bit and experience the elements. Now, if you aren't familiar with the basic structure of the book, the 10 Towns section is very sandboxy. The adventure says to start players with one of 2 starting quests, or select the town quest for the town you'd like to start in. So that makes for 12 quest possibilities. But for me personally, the idea of selecting the town first feels less valuable than selecting the quest. Sure, the town definitely matters, as the PCs will likely spend some time exploring in the town, but I looked at the quests associated with each town to make my choice. That's just my emphasis. Now, I just watched Bob Worldbuilder's video on the 10 Towns quests, and I'll put a link down in the video description to that. He had the idea of letting his players choose the starting quest town in their session 0. You can just lay out the basics of the towns and let the players choose. He also gave each of the players' characters knowledge of one of the quests. I thought this was a great idea, and he has lots of great ideas, so definitely go check out his channel and his ongoing Icewind Dale DM guides. Now, if you want some help getting an overview of all the quests at a glance that's a little more detailed than this list that the book includes, I actually did a write-up with some basic bullet points on each, as well as notes about how challenging each one is as written, and some notes about how connected each quest is to other quests, and how connected they are to the later storyline. I'll put a link to this guide right up there where I posted it on my website. This is something I wish the book had included to make the job of selecting quests a bit easier. You either get this 1-sentence description, or you flip around through the chapter to get more detail by actually reading each quest. So I hope that the write-up helps you to read as much as it helped me to write. But anyway, for the rest of the video, we'll now narrow our 12 quests down to which ones make the best campaign starters by process of elimination. First, the 2 starting quests, Cold-Hearted Killer and Nature Spirits. Nature Spirits was immediately out for me. Chasing around a few little chwingas is high on mystery and kind of creepy, but it just seemed a bit too whimsical and unexciting for my taste. And I know at least one of my players really likes classic combat against monsters, so this quest was out. I probably won't ever run it. The other starting quest, Cold-Hearted Killer, seems neat as it involves chasing a murderer. But the murderer in this case is Sefik Caltro, and he has a challenge rating of 3. As written, he would absolutely wipe the floor with most level 1 parties unless they are really cautious and strategic. I considered it, but I also had a player cancel because of a situation about 24 hours before the game, and with only 3 level 1 characters, this one was definitely out. Now, as a side note, we actually did start this one in session 2. I really like the quest, and I left it on a cliffhanger for session 3 because the players just found Sefik Caltro. He's alone in an icy ravine. He draws his sword, blue glowing ice, and faces them, and to be continued. This might seem like a tease, but I love a good cliffhanger, and honestly, we were just out of time. So cool quest, but now I have 4 level 2 characters who stand a bit more of a chance. But to be honest, they still might lose this fight. Anyway, back to session 1. What about the other quest possibilities? There are a couple quests that have the players entering dungeons, or just largish contained environments with a map. And those were less attractive to me. Sometimes when I put up a dungeon map, I find my players can get really strategic and cautious, and it can actually move a little more slowly. And as I mentioned earlier, I favor a bit more outdoor exploration and travel for our first quest. So the Black Swords quest in Caer Dineval, which has them exploring a castle full of cultists with a chance to free the town speaker, was out. The East Haven quest, Toil and Trouble, was also out because it has them exploring a cave complex that is actually a hag's lair. Also, this would be really challenging at level 1. The Tourmaline quest, A Beautiful Mine, was also out as it has the PCs clearing kobolds out of a gem mine, and the main threat there is actually a grell. At challenge rating 3, I just looked at this and thought, that thing is totally going to sneak up and kill one of my level 1 characters outright. I can just see it happening, and I don't want to wallop my players like that in session 1. So the more dungeon-like quests were not a good fit for me, but this is also a good transition into the topic of challenge. Now this is totally a matter of taste. A lot of people on the internet think this book has poorly balanced encounters here in chapter 1, but I'll say a couple things in response. First, I think smart strategic players can actually survive really tough encounters. Some of you have seen this in your own games. An encounter that was supposed to be way too hard and send the party running for their lives, and they actually beat it. It happens. Secondly, chapter 1 is a big sandbox, and in that style of play, the idea of balance, you can just throw it out the window. The world is big and dangerous, and you're level 1, so be careful. Expect to get stomped on or killed or have to run away. But that's a certain style of play a lot of us are not prepared for. And for me personally, I'm kind of attracted to that, but this is session 1, and the idea of killing a character right after they've rolled up their characters, it's not my speed. So in addition to some of the things I've already said about certain quests being very hard for a first level party, I'll add a couple more here to the too challenging list. First, the Lonelywood quest, the White Moose. The White Moose itself is a challenge 3, and the Frost Druid behind it all is a challenge rating 5. And there's more to it than that, so yeah, no, way too much. A couple of the quests would also be way too hard if the players are not super careful and sneaky. And that's cool, I like those quests from time to time, but for a session opener, let's get some fun action. A good brawl of some kind. So this immediately threw out the Dugan's Hole quest, Hold Up, which has the players trying to rescue some children from 2 CR3 winter wolves and a CR6 mammoth. Yeah, tread lightly on that one. A direct fight is a very bad idea. The Good Mead quest, Let the Mead Flow, similarly would require a low-level party to be very sneaky and cautious in rescuing some barrels of mead from a Verbeeg Marauder, challenge rating 4, or 2 perhaps, and an ogre, and a cave bear. So yeah, no fun combat for a level 1 party in that one. Lastly, the Targos quest, Mountain Climb, was out, but this one was a little more borderline, as it does have some cool outdoor survival stuff that could set the tone really well, and it is sort of doable at level 1 if they don't try to fight everything. But things could very easily go wrong with 2 CR1 Crag Cats and a couple of Yeti at challenge rating 3. A fight is avoidable there, but it could easily turn very deadly. Again, nothing wrong with the deadly quests where the players have to sneak and think instead of fight. I think they're great, but it's not what I was looking for in session 1. Now, there are a couple of quests that I think make sense going later for story reasons. The first one is the previously eliminated White Moose quest. The Frost Druid in this one is also one that the players may be able to hear about in the Bremen Lake Monster quest, and I think it's cool to drop the hints earlier in the Bremen quest, and then actually have the players meet her later after her reputation has become known. I also think the Caer Konig quest, The Unseen, is one that goes well later because it features Duergar thieves, which have a strong connection to Zardarok Sunblight, who the characters will encounter in Chapter 3. In this one, the PCs will encounter his son, and to me, that will work better when they're getting a bit closer to Chapter 3. So this now leaves 2 quest possibilities. The Bremen quest, Lake Monster, or the Bryn Shander quest, Foaming Mugs. I think either of these would make great options to kick off your campaign. Bremen is a small lake town, while Bryn Shander is the largest of the 10 towns, and it has the feel of a big walled city, bustling and full of options. So your preference for one of those could play a role here. I have a slight preference for starting in smaller towns. In the Lake Monster quest, the players have a pretty low chance of actual combat, but it's got some excitement. The PCs are sent out to catch some fish, and they have to navigate past some ice floes that could ruin their boat, and the knucklehead trout they're trying to catch are big, strong fish that can hit, bite, and will almost definitely pull some players into the frigid water, leading to suffering levels of exhaustion. Additionally, there's the lake monster, which is an awakened plesiosaurus, and while it won't likely come to direct combat, it will try to destroy the boats, and it'll just give your players a good scare. I'll also say I think both of these quests are pretty short, so for my players, it gave them some time to hang out in Bremen and do some role-playing at the tavern and a bit of shopping, which was cool. The Foaming Mugs quest in Bryn Shander involves the PCs being asked to help an injured troop of dwarves who were ambushed by a yeti while transporting their iron ingots by sled. One of them was killed, and their sled is still out there in the wild. The quest has the PCs tracking the missing ingots and discovering that they've now been taken by a group of goblins and their goblin boss, who also have a wagon being pulled by 2 polar bears. They do find the scene of the Yeti attack as well, with poor Ubok the dwarf absolutely torn to shreds. A brutal reminder of the harshness of Icewind Dale. This one might actually be my top choice because goblins just make for fun level 1 combat in my opinion. And additionally, if you show a polar bear kind of snapping at one of the goblins, the PCs might get the hint that they can actually use the polar bears to set loose on their goblin captors, which just sounds potentially fun and chaotic. So Lake Monster and Foaming Mugs are probably my top choices, and personally I ended up going with Lake Monster, partially because I like the town of Bremen and it sounded like a good starting town, and partially because I only had 3 players and I thought, I think this one would scale well no matter the size of the group. Now, my only complaint with this one was there's no real combat, so I did actually include a more sustained attack from the awakened plesiosaurus, and they actually did roll initiative and get a few hits in on it. And I also dropped some hints to my players that they could actually speak to it, and they did get some cool background information when they tried that. They failed to stop its attacks, and they got properly soaking wet and freezing, and it was just a fun, tense, and action-packed session. Anyway, these are just my preferences and some thoughts on the 12 10 Towns quests. And if you're struggling to pick out quests yourself, take a look at the summaries on my website and let me know what you think down in the comments below. Lastly, before we go, I want to thank the WASD20 patrons for their support of my channel. There's some pretty cool rewards over there you can check out, and a new one that I'm considering is actually campaign diaries for the Icewind Dale campaign. So go over there to Patreon and check it all out. If you get value out of these videos, it's a great way you can show your support. Patreon.com/WASD20. Thank you very much, patrons, and thank you all for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Take care, everybody. You'll see me again very soon.